Elm Logistics. For all your logistic needs, call 631-299-3595. That's 631-299-3595. Elm Global Logistics. Pride, performance, and partnerships.
I'm having one fun with Monte The Pharaoh, and I'm going to put him in the crossface again, and he's going to go down right now. Yeah.
You want to have a good match, put me against Flair. And I challenge him right now. Don't wear the t-shirt. I won't wear one. Let's go out there and nail each other.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh, where we welcome Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Thank you.
Sir, we have to thank you. You gave us our start. You were our first real guest on our show when we first started off in that much smaller studio.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Yep. And we had Mexican.
Well, I dressed up for the occasion.
I know, you're looking good. You got the jacket on. You got the
First
sunglasses
time
on.
I looked like I just got off the beach in Florida with shorts and everything.
You just mentioned Vince McMahon. You probably know about all the allegations and the payments and things like that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Oh, God, I feel, it's just any kind of thing like that is such a bad situation to be in. And I don't, be honest with you, I don't know what to think about it. I really don't. I don't know what to think about it. And
well, you had a close relationship with Vince at some point in your career.
Yeah. Well,
was he that pregocious? Is that a good word to use?
Flirtatious? Did you ever see any signs that, the guy was making out like a rock star?
Yeah. No, he was pretty coy about doing that, you know. I knew him really well back before his dad passed away and then Vince took over. And then once Vince took over and he had to do this, he separated himself from the boys. But we used to ride together and laugh, and we were friends. So, it's just, I don't know what to say about it. I don't want to say anything really. I just feel bad that I feel bad for him. I guess I feel bad for the girl too. It's hard to say.
You feel the company's in good hands though now with Stephanie and Triple H? You feel confident in the future of the WWE?
Yeah. I think they're fine. Stephanie's smart. She's a chip off the old block, and Linda McMahon she'll be in there, and I can see Vince. He's going to be back there in the back, still pulling the reins.
So you still think Vince is around somehow?
Yeah, he'd be like,
That's great.
He'll be like Obama helping Joe Biden now.
There you go.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel though? That you're one of the pillars that created, like I don't think anyone could imagine it would become this billion-dollar corporation it is now, but you are one of the major pillars that built this organization. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, so I came in here in 1979, and before all that WrestleMania stuff, and it was great then. They were doing great business then, and they were starting to go to the West Coast and everywhere, and Vince was buying TV everywhere, and so I was at the beginning of that before WrestleMania 1, and when that came out, then bang, but I knew what was going on in the office a lot, and George Scott, who gave me my first break in Charlotte, came up and actually became the booker, also right around the same time. He's the one that actually set me up in 1979. He brought me in, and I'm in Charlotte. I'm Flair's partner. I'm doing great. And he goes, we're going to send you to New York. New York? I don't want to leave here. And New York was scary to me, but, you know, it was really good. And Vince McMahon Sr. was such a class act. And he grabbed me and he says, we're going to give you a hold. It's called a figure 4 leg lock. I didn't know what the hell it was. And this is Senior I'm talking about. And he had me breaking everybody's leg. And I mean, talking about, he knew how to get somebody in the, for lack of better word, over or famous. Over in wrestling jargon is mean you're over. You know, you can draw money now. Everybody believes in you. Figure 4, and he knew how to do that. So.
Strange question. The move, as you just revealed, was, you know, basically given to you with the idea coming through Vince Sr., right?
Right.
Does the move go with you to the next territory without saying, hey, Vince, I'm still going to use this. It seems to be really good. Did you have to, is there any?
Well,
like,
no, because back then they didn't care. You know, he says, I'm going to send you back to Charlotte or wherever you want to go, and then I want you back in a year. You know, that's what he told me. So that made me feel good. So when I went to Charlotte, I used the backward suplex, and I used
the elbow.
the brain buster, the elbow. And I started using the figure 4 down there, and they said, hey, wait a minute, Ric Flair uses that figure 4. So for a while, I didn't use it. And then George was the booker still then. He says, go ahead and use that figure 4. Flair's the world champion. He's gone, you know, he's not even around here. So yeah, so I kept it. It became my signature hold no matter where I went. I was doing really, really good on the NWA Charlotte, and I didn't want to leave and come to New York. They brought me into New York because New York, they weren't drawing up here. What they needed was guys that could wrestle. I don't know. I'm not going to knock the guys that they had here, but they were poking fingers in the eye, and they were ball shots. I mean, it's all the shortcuts in wrestling, not making it look real, not making it look like a contest. And so Senior knew he had to change something. So I think the guy that came in before me, Kim Patera, was what they were looking for wrestling-wise. Then I came in with a wrestling hold, did the hour Broadway with Backlund right away. People would come up to me and say they'd never seen anything like that. 2 guys wrestling for an hour long, you know, to a finish. Nobody won, but they'd never seen that in New York. So he was building, Senior was building, trying to get it back to realistic wrestling. Something a fan could bite their teeth in and say, I know that's not fake. That's got to be real. Look at that. And back then, you know, me and Tito used to hit each other hard. I mean, you know, it's just certain guys that didn't want to work with me because I hit them hard, but I didn't hit them in the face. I wanted everything to be believable. I grew up watching Johnny Valentine, my dad, who was the stiffest son of a bitch ever. But he made the people believe. You're not trying to convince your opponent it's for real,
right.
But you want everybody to believe it, and that's the way I got over. And that's the way I got over here. And the people still talk about the 80s and the 90s or whatever and the 70s because, you know, it was competition. It looked like the real thing. The only, you know, we knew a lot of, you know, I didn't plan my matches. I went out. I didn't want to talk about my matches. I went out. I knew what the ending was going to be, whether I was going to lose or I was going over. I like to just play it by ear, and I've been working, when I first came in here, I've been working 10 years. So if you don't know how to work by 10 years, you should go find another job. And it was all feeling, and that's the only way to make the people believe it's for real, is if you're just going off the cuff and making it. And it's got to be your opponent too. Backlund was a little hard at first, but after he got tired, he was easy to work with. Tito was a dream when they stuck me with him. And any of the other guys I worked with, it was
Do you consider
Jay
that?
Strongbow. I could have fantastic matches with him.
Do you consider the Tito feud your greatest feud ever?
It was the longest one. I would put it. Yeah, I would have to say yes.
About 2 years, that program?
It lasted actually for 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
He
wow.
was such a beautiful guy. to
He
work
tells a
with.
story though that you purposely destroyed the belt so he couldn't have it, and it was a shoot. Is that accurate? And by the way, the belt's here. We found it in Tito's garbage. But
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
okay.
he might.
we took
Oh, that looks like it.
Yeah, we repaired it too.
They might have told him that, but they came up to me and told me to destroy the belt after I lose the match, and so I destroyed it. And they said they're gonna get him a new title, right? And it was a good thing for me because I lost the belt, so now I'm like a baby throwing a temper tantrum and beat the hell out of it, and then I leave. And then Tito sold it beautifully. He came in and he grabbed it and he looked at it and he held it like it was a little baby, and like he's crying and he's, oh, it was beautiful.
It was.
Now,
We had some
It
good
was.
direction.
did you
back
ask him for the belt afterwards to take it home? Like, who ended up with that
I
destroyed
should've.
belt?
He put it in his bag and left with it, and I think they knew he was going to get a new belt, but that belt, that'd be so great to have.
Man, those old school belts were
Yeah,
like,
I should have kept it.
oh my
Yeah.
God.
Any thoughts on Ric Flair's recent last match?
Yeah, I didn't watch it, and it kept popping up. I get YouTube everywhere in my house. It pops up on my cable, my big screen, and I never did really. I started to watch it. I saw Jeff Jarrett look pretty good. Rick had his shirt on. I go, I ain't gonna watch it. He's got his shirt on. And I hate that. If you're so old you can't wrestle, you got to wear a shirt. And I heard he got tired. I just didn't want to watch it. Now, you want to have a good match, put me against Flair. And I challenge him right now. Don't wear the T-shirt. I won't wear one. Let's go out there and nail each other.
That would be.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I challenge him right now.
Now,
Well, let me ask you this: were you a greater? Well, we were talking about last night's show, the greatest of all time. It was Hulk Hogan's birthday yesterday, and
Was it really?
Yes.
Okay.
would you consider yourself better than Ric Flair as one of the all-time greats?
I'm better than Hogan and Flair.
nice.
Yeah.
Tell us why. Why do you feel that way?
Well, Ric Flair's matches were all the same. And I used to put thoughts into my matches and tried to mix it up, And sometimes we get repeat. There's only so many different things you can do. But, how many times you're going to watch him go hit the rope and turn around, go over the top, run down, come on, drop the elbow. How many times you can see that? That's every friggin' match he has. I like Rick, but I'm shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
I'm saying his matches are all alike. Mine, I couldn't take the bumps like Rick, but I don't think bumps are that realistic. Anyway, I tried to make my matches different. And as far as Hogan, he just had the ultimate push. Nice guy, had great interviews, big friggin' arms. He was just right for that time in the era. But as far as work and realistic and drawing money, I sold Madison Square Garden out 17 times. And I know that for a fact. And I think it's because of my believability. And Hogan had the major push, and he had his own deal, made lots of money. And so,
Well,
I think I'm better than both
let me
of them.
ask you about that. He got the major push, but could anyone, in your opinion, could anyone else have carried the WWE to? Because Hogan's the spark that created the WWE today.
The WrestleMania.
Obviously, you, right? The opponents, things like that. Could anyone else have done that besides Hogan? Could McMahon have used somebody else?
Well, I could have been the world champion, but I wouldn't want to, because I'm a heel, the bad guy, I wouldn't want to keep it. So he was perfect for that. But the reason I say I was better than him is I was just a better worker.
Yeah.
But me and Tito used to go out. I mean, they had 3 towns a night running in the 80s, in the 90s. And me and Tito could go main event in Detroit and go to Boston that same day and sell them out sell both Boston and Detroit out with just the Intercontinental belt. We didn't need Hogan on the card. We didn't need anybody on the card. We could do it ourselves. I mean, you got to have an undercard, but Hogan, so, you know, that was a big feather in our cap for drawing. And I can't draw nothing by myself. I have to have a good opponent like Tito. He was fabulous.
So what you're trying to say is the other wrestlers probably happy being on the B card with you guys because the draw is the same as a Hogan card.
So I was the B card, but we still sold out and we made money. And I'll listen, Greg and Tito over there, don't worry about it. We'll have Hogan go over here. And then I think there was even three cards on the weekends, and they probably still, wrestling was just hot back then, but we could, the Intercontinental Champion I myself could sell out without Hogan on the card.
Key word being worker, you've mentioned it a couple of times. Who to Greg Valentine is the greatest worker in the history of pro wrestling?
Besides myself?
There you go. Well, we got the obvious. I mean, who's second to you?
No, there's guys with different styles, you know, and I guess like Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know,
Interesting.
he did a phenomenal job in getting over, and The Rock. Rock had a lot of charisma, plus he knew how to work. I mean, there's a lot of other guys that could work good. You know, that's just off the top of my head.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on guys?
I don't watch the current product.
Okay.
I can't really. I don't want to say anything bad about it, but I'm just past that. I watch WrestleMania, and that's about it. Speaking of selling out by ourselves, without Hogan, Beefcake and Valentine could go anywhere against the Bulldogs, and no tag team had done this. And tag teams were just a supporting card, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'd be underneath, say, Hogan or whoever in the main event. We were the real main event and went everywhere and sold out against those Bulldogs.
In New York, that match closed out WrestleMania 2.
Right.
Very upsetting, by the way. Very,
Right.
very upset about it.
I was upset about it, too. And we were supposed to get the belts back, but it didn't happen, you know.
Why not?
Was
I remember
Dynamite...
going to the office and complaining, when are we getting
Yeah.
the belts back?
Yeah.
And Vince goes, oh, we're going to do a round robin. Oh, by the way,
Round
I got a
robin?
check here for $125,000 made out to you, your first doll check, your action figure check. So I'm looking at that, and then I
don't need the
forgot
belts.
why I was
Who cares
there.
about the belts?
need
I'm
the
done.
belts.
Yeah, I got this, so I'm going to go buy me a new car.
Was Dynamite Kid as much as a prick as everybody says he was? Or?
Not to me, but he
wouldn't
was a prick.
well,
yeah.
I wouldn't expect him to be to you. He
So
probably
were you there with that whole thing with the Rougeaus? Like, what do you know about that whole situation?
Okay, so here, I was in Miami, and I think we weren't working with the Bulldogs there that night. I think it was some big deal, like a Royal Rumble out of Miami, and or maybe it wasn't. But anyway, I'll tell you what happened in the dressing room. Rouge was sitting there unlacing his shoes, and the little guy. Not
Dynamite.
Davey Boy, but Dynamite
Dynamite.
comes in. I'm sitting right there next to Rougeau. He comes in and he slaps Jock twice right across the face. You piece of you f***ed up the whole match. You son of a bitch, get up and fight right now. And Jock just sat there like this, you know. And I probably would have done the same thing, like, wait a minute, let me go, you know. Well, if someone hit me like that, I would have hit him back. But I mean, he was like stunned. And I'm watching this, I go, what the f-, you know? And so about a month later, or maybe it wasn't that long, maybe it's 2 weeks later when we're doing a TV somewhere, and we're in the lunchroom, and we're all coming out, and I'm one of the last guys in there, and all of a sudden I hear this, bam! Rougeau was waiting for Dynamite Kid to come out and punched him, and everybody said he had a bunch of coins in his hands or something to make his fist real hard. Punched him in the face and knocked about 4 teeth down his throat and took off and left. Now, about a week later, I'm flying over to Europe, and they're going with me. I didn't think Dynamite was going to come. And he's just smiling. He had 3 teeth missing. And that was bad. That was bad. But I don't know if Rougeau, I know he said, he attacked him and waiting around the corner because he had been embarrassed. I don't know if he had a roll of quarters there, but he gave him a hell of a shot and knocked 3 teeth out.
You mentioned you were tight with Junior before he got the company from his father.
Right.
Was it stressful for you, your friendship with Junior, as he became the big shot and took over, and now you're not getting
It was stressful because he didn't say hi to anybody, and he just walk on through, And it used to be Captain. We used to have these big dinners after Allentown, and everybody would be invited. Not everybody, but I was there. Grand Wizard was there. Sergeant Slaughter was always there. Gorilla Monsoon was there, and a couple other guys, give or take a few. And we'd all have that big dinner, and Vince Senior would be at the head of the table, and Junior would be right here, And Captain Lou, about halfway through, would get really drunk, and he'd start laying it in on Vince Jr. I'll tell you what, you guys better watch out, because if anything happens to that old man, that punk kid is going to take over, and if you fall down in front of him, he's going to walk right over the top of you. In other words, he hasn't got the heart that the old man, but I don't want to say that, he's still a chip off the old block. It's a different thing. Maybe Vince had to separate it, because he was taking over, but he didn't have the heart that the old man had. Vince Sr. used to come up to me and he goes, when I had to, remember the name Stan Stasiak?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure,
He
of
said
course.
he'd been here forever, and I had to let him go. And he goes, I couldn't do it. I couldn't fire the guy, but I finally had to do it. He's telling me this story out of the blue. And he was such a good guy. And, maybe Vince is a chip off the old block. I'm sure he's got a good heart too, but he'd send Pat Patterson out to tell you you're fired or something. But yeah, so, but I know.
How did Pat handle all that, though? That had to be tough on Pat too, right?
What's up?
Like, so he
Letting
sent,
people go.
He'd have to
Being
send
the
Pat to
mouthpiece
be
for-
the mouthpiece all the time. Was that difficult for
That
Pat?
can't be easy.
Yeah, okay, so, but I think in later years they just send you a letter and say you're fired.
Just give you the old FedEx.
On your wedding day.
Yeah, on your wedding day.
Yeah, like CM Punk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we all know that AEW is coming around, and again, you against Roddy Piper, dog collar match. Everybody knows that, and from being up here,
Right.
we would read it through the
PWI.
the magazines, all that stuff. We're like,
Yep,
holy cow,
after.
look at this. But I'm just asking your honest opinion. I'm sitting there watching you, and they're announcing this match, and you're sitting in the
Oh, for
chair.
AEW?
You're kind of waving to the crowd, yeah. And I'm
Right.
thinking to myself, does he really do you really want to see them try to replicate the iconic match like
You think
that?
they
I
did-
mean, what was going through your head?
Did they do you justice in your
Okay,
mind?
so I'm watching it and trying to analyze it, and I know they keep have the cameras hitting me, and stuff, and I'm trying to sell it, while I'm watching it. I thought they did an admirable job. Is that a good word?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't duplicate what me and Piper did. Come on, you can't do that. I don't know, did they bleed or anything? I can't even remember. But I don't think the chain was a big, heavy chain like we had. But I was there, and I thought they did a good job, and it's a shame that guy died not too long, Brody Lee,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
after that.
Mhm.
And Cody Rhodes, he's a chip off the old block too. So I thought it was, I would give it a B+. But as far as compared to me and Piper, no.
Was that your greatest match of all time in your mind, or is there something else?
Actually, the matches that me and Piper had leading up to that in different spots around the Carolinas, you can catch them on YouTube every now and then. I thought they were better. I mean, they were some jam-up, jelly-type matches, but when you got a chain in there, it's hard to work with that thing. But I think we did a great job with it. I guess as far as brutality and iconicness, that would be the greatest match that either one of us have been in, other than him being on top in WrestleMania 1, I think me and Brutus had some fantastic matches against the Bulldogs, but not WrestleMania 2, maybe some Saturday night's main events. And, yeah, so.
It's funny you brought that up. I was just thinking about that because I thought you guys were going to win the belts back that night because I think it was a 2 out of 3 falls and you
Right.
took the first fall. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, thank God they're going to win the belt back.
But, yeah.
So back to Piper real quick. Today's wrestler, you're a huge guy. You are a wrestler. Today's wrestler, 150 pounds, 160 pounds, whatever the case is.
Now I'm a huge guy.
Now,
This is a problem.
Now, Piper wasn't a really big guy, I'm assuming,
No.
right? How was Piper able to present himself that you felt he could take on Andre the Giant and beat Andre the Giant? What was it about Piper?
He was believable. Why?
Well, yeah, because learning how to work, you learn how, when you get in the ring, because I wasn't the biggest guy either. You just learn how to project yourself. And Piper had that, that sneer and that look and believability, and he was a Golden Glove boxer, so he was really a tough guy. But he was only about 225, 230 pounds soaking wet, maybe 235. He pumped up, but he wasn't a big guy. But he had good-looking punches because of the Golden Glove. He came up the hard way. He came up in L.A. like I did, and he came up the Mid-Atlantic. The Mid-Atlantic, he really got together and learned how to mix his boxing with his wrestling. I always kind of tried to do the rope-a-dope thing like Muhammad Ali, and tried to mix boxing with wrestling, because it gets, you take the shots, and just wrestling period is boring after a while, laying down a hold. But you get the guy down a hold, make the people come back, then you go back to fisticuffs again, So I think Piper was a great worker.
You've had some really awesome tag team partners over the years, but can I ask you a little bit about what I feel like on paper, this might be the greatest team of all time, and it seemed to be like a rocket ship that you passed by. Ric Flair and Greg Valentine. Memories of that very special tag team in my mind.
The only thing that I didn't like about being Flair's partner is sometimes he would forget I'm on the corner waiting to be tagged in.
Really? Okay.
He would get into his match so much. Now, that's not a real knock. And then I went to him, I says, man, you need to tag me in more often. And so we got to do that. But he was so used to being out there maybe by himself, he'd forget I'm over there. What makes a tag team good is the tagging in and out. So a lot of times we had some great matches. I think, that could have been a dream team too. But he went off on his own and became the world champion, and I came up here to New York. So I would have to say Beefcake was my best partner.
I
There
agree.
you go.
I agree with you.
You
I
love
agree.
them. There you go.
And number one, because you got to have a captain, and I was the captain, and Beefcake, he followed right along, but he learned so good. He looked so good. We both didn't have blonde hair. He had his own look, and I
Yeah.
had my own look.
Right.
I'm having one time with Monte The Pharaoh, and I'm gonna put him in the crossface again, and he's gonna go down right now. Yeah.
I was pissed.
The Saba
because
Simba
this
thing.
match sucked. And Saba Sinner said, what the am I even doing out here? So the Dream Team, that was actually my name for it. And I think there was another Dream Team basketball or something
Right.
earlier Olympics. But I think we might have been the original Dream Team. And I'm the one that thought that up. And they liked it, so they went with it.
Should have trademarked that.
Yeah,
What's
Loved
going
it.
on here?
yeah.
All right, so you wrestle Backlund, our Broadways, whatever else. What is the transition for Greg Valentine after he finally falls to Backlund?
He didn't fall. He won the belt.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
He won the belt.
Second time I came up,
October 19th.
yes.
we did the double pin. yeah.
Right.
So I was world champion.
That was-
I'm always
You
going
won.
to say this, dude.
Did you actually defend that at one point?
Did
I
you?
think in the
No.
Capitol Center, no?
No.
But there's pictures with you
I
holding it.
I grabbed that belt, took a lot of pictures because I knew they're going to come and take it away from
How
me.
dare I
But
was so
they
pissed.
held the belt up for about 6 weeks until we came back
In New York. They
in
held
New York,
Right,
right?
right.
That was so after the hour-long Broadway and then my first time, 79 and 80 up here, my first run with Backlund, then I broke Strongbow's leg and actually did more money with Strongbow than I did with Backlund.
Thank you for
Wow.
breaking his leg,
Yeah,
by the way. Thank you.
Yeah. And he was beautiful. And that was all his idea. They weren't going to do
Nice,
that. He went
nice.
to Vince, let Greg break my leg.
There you
so
go.
I made a lot of money with Chief. So the second round, I came back up here, I think it was 82, and I did, worked with Backlund again, and we did that double pin. So then they held the belt up in Madison Square Garden. And so then we came back, and then I lost to him. But then I did the angle with Pedro Morales, where I suplexed him on a cement floor,
Yep.
and he sold it like a champ, and I hurt the hell out of my arm, and did gangbusters with Pedro Morales. I thought maybe they're going to give me the belt with Pedro, but they never did. So I ended up going back to the Carolinas, but I'm glad I did. So I went back there and broke Wahoo's leg. And
You and Indians.
didn't use the figure four on Wahoo because I couldn't get it on. I tried to put it on the dressing room.
Oh, his legs were
he
too
had
thick.
those big legs for
Yeah.
playing for the New York Jets and the Dolphins. He was a football player. I couldn't get it on, so I just did this thing where I hooked his leg on the ankle and just fell back. And he sold it like a champ, and I broke Wahoo's leg. We started, made a ton of money with Wahoo. And I'm going to give, I feel like I'm a tough guy now, but I'm old. I'm old now. But he made me, in my heyday, he made me tough. I wasn't tough till I worked with Wahoo. He beat the crap out of me, hit me in the face, me up so bad. Finally, I just got mad one day, and I found out, well, I'm a little tougher than I thought I was. I hit him point blank in his face, and he went down on his knees. And then he came up to my wife and I, and we were in Bennigan's. Remember Bennigan's?
Yeah.
In Charlotte later that night. And he goes, I just want to tell you, your husband's one hell of a man. And he walked off.
That's fun.
And from that day on, I thought, well, I am a little bit tough. Only because he beat me tough. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 It does.
I wouldn't fight back before that. You know, I find it.
I have to ask you because when you got your shot with Backlund the second time around in '82,
Right.
and then you fought with Pedro,
Right.
you were the center of my wrestling universe. You were my first real favorite wrestler, and
Thank
you've
you.
remained my favorite heel 40 years later.
Thank you.
So I need to know, did you make any kind of like case for yourself behind the scenes, like when you were close to beating Backlund but didn't. Then they put you with Pedro. Maybe they'll give me this belt. You're close again. Did you argue with them at all behind the scenes and try to make more of a pitch for yourself? Because this kid in East Northport was going crazy, going, how does he not have a belt? What a nerd I am. I need to know. Did you fight for on your own behalf to try to like get these belts around?
Okay, here's one thing where I'll put Flair over what I do. Flair got into the office and he pitched himself. I should have done that, but I didn't. I hated going to the office. The only time I can remember going to the office is when me and Beefcake went and bitched about getting our tag belts back. That's the only time I could remember. I didn't go to the office enough. When I was in Crockett Promotions in Charlotte, I did go to the office more often. Flair was there all the time. Maybe that's why he was 17 times world champion. So I didn't do enough politicking.
So
That was my fault.
Flair and Hogan very similar that way with the behind-the-scenes ability to.
Yeah, they got Vince's
Dusty
ear.
Rhodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tony Atlas is a good friend of the show, and Tony
Right.
was telling me one time over dinner that, I don't know how true this is, that Vince sent you after him in a real match and told you to shoot on him. Is that a true story?
Tony said that?
He said that, yeah.
Tony might have had a few, but that's okay. What do you
But,
think?
oh, Christ.
He said like you literally like beat out him or
Ooh,
something
really
during
now?
a match.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
okay. Was that when he was Saba Simba?
Yes, yes. And Vince wanted to get rid of the character, and they sent you out to finish the job.
No. You know what, though? That's not true. That's not true. But I did get mad at Tony in the ring because I said, what the kind of gimmick is that? And he wasn't selling nothing for me. And so I just started hitting him. Bam, bam. I was pissed.
Did Saba
'cause
Simba
this
think
match sucked. And Saba Simba said, what the am I even doing out here? And I was half-assed babyface then anyway. I was making my turn.
Okay.
And I was in a bad mood. And Tony, you know, Tony could probably just knock me out anyway because he's got those big fucking arms.
Yeah.
And he's such a nice guy. But we were hitting each other really hard. And I just got fed up with it. But the finish was a up finish where I think, oh yeah, I held him and Jimmy got the guitar or something. I still had a guitar for some reason. Jimmy brought it out or something and went to hit Tony over the head with the guitar, but he hit me instead. So then I did my babyface turn kind of then. Saba Simba left, and then I'm like, I'm going to hit you, Jimmy Hart, and the people popped on that. So, that being said, I can see why Tony thought Vince told me to go. But you know what? I could never beat up Tony Ladd. Look at that. How are you going to beat that up? That's like trying to beat up Mike Tyson.
You ain't kidding, man.
Christ. You know?
And he's still got the guns. It's ridiculous.
But you know what? The match, I was so disgusted in the match that maybe I was throwing one too many potatoes. But he was throwing them back at me, you know, potato, you know.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
So I could see why he might have thought that I was gunning for him.
Greg, I don't
I
know.
would pick a lot smaller guy than that.
I know nothing about nothing, but I
Yeah.
was totally surprised. I did not know that you were married to Medusa Maselli.
No, never.
You-
I wasn't married.
Okay,
Word.
so where did I hear that from?
I
Where
don't
did-
know. It's bull. She was down. I guess she stayed with me about 2 years.
Oh, so you
I
were
was
dating.
you were dating then?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
She moved in with me, and then she moved out.
So, again, how was like she's a very A personality, at least from what I see on interviews. So was that hard, like a hard relationship to
What do you
deal
mean
with?
by a personality?
Like very like
Outgoing? Outspoken?
very
Intense?
very I'm the boss type of person.
Oh.
It seemed like, right? It's like when you see her
Alpha
even, on
female?
any interview
well,
you see
that's
with
probably why we didn't get along because
Okay.
you know
Okay.
I was a quiet person, and
But the TV dinners were on the wrong side of the fridge or something? Put them
yeah,
on the other side?
I don't know how we got along. You know, I took her on the road with me. We went to Europe and different places like that. So I guess around the wrestling business it was okay, but just having, she came into my house and it just didn't work out. You know, it wasn't a good fix, and I should have never done that. And it actually pissed me off when I think about it because it was a bad scene. But thankfully, I met the love of my life, Julie, and I was with Julie before Medusa, and then
Oh.
me and Julie got back together
Okay.
and got married, and 26 years now we're still together. So, so it just it was a wild time of my life, and no, that's why we didn't get along, you know.
Any particular opponent you had in your career that was a high profile, one of your legendary feuds perhaps? Was anybody really hard to work with, or that you felt you had, oh, I got to carry him?
I was fortunate to usually be programmed with, you know, like Ronnie Garvin was great, and Piper was great, and Tito was great. Morocco, I worked with Morocco some.
How about JYD?
JYD only had 2 matches with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was hard to work with,
Okay.
but he was so over with the people. There's a lot of guys, you know, Steamboat had great matches with him. There's a lot of guys, and my dad taught me, you know, there's some guys you just have to learn how to work around them. Especially if you're the champ. So you can just take your time and go out there and circle your opponent, and then, you know, just basic, like the Ultimate Warrior when I worked in him. I would just let him run back and forth till he got tired of himself out, and then I'd work with him. But I couldn't work my style with him. There was a lot of guys like that. But you just had to work. You had to fake it through and work it out, and eventually they'll come around to you. You know.
What percentage works for you? And being an old school wrestler with a famous father, watching WrestleMania become a thing that's now the Super Bowl. Obviously, Vince McMahon Jr. always felt entertainment is the bigger factor in his presentation. What's the percentage for you that you feel is acceptable between wrestling and entertainment? Has it gone too far over the years, or is there, you know, how would you like to see it broken down? How much of a percentage would be wrestling and how much would be entertainment, considering you saw both over all these years?
Oh, that's a hard question. You know, the WrestleManias do good all the time. And first of all, I think there's too much. There's too much wrestling on TV. Too much, you know.
Yeah,
And they got it. What's it on? 4 nights a week.
it's
No,
yeah,
it's nonstop.
it really is
3
nonstop.
hours one night, 3 hours another night, and then they got the NXT, and then
Sure.
you got AEWs on twice a week.
Then there's TNA and the rest of the other little ones.
I
Yep.
think there's too much wrestling. People got to be hungry to watch it. I like it in the old days where you had Saturday night's main event when on NBC was a big thing once a month. You had TV in the daytime or whatever, and you push the shows, or WOR midnight on Saturday nights forever was here. It's just too much wrestling, and I think because of that, they run out of ideas to try to make everything look new, and they go, oh God, you know. I mean, it's just too. I don't know how they do it.
What
I don't
was-
know how they can keep up. That's why it's lost its credibility, because there's too much wrestling.
Yeah.
You know.
What was your feeling like? Holy, I'm on NBC. I can't, like, who would have ever thought I was going to be on NBC?
No, that was a great feeling, being on NBC. You know, Saturday night's main event once a month. That was great, and we had some great. Me and Brutus, I remember being on there a lot. We had some great matches with the Bulldogs, and that's such a good era, and everything. See, everything was so brand new and innovative, and we're coming out with this and that. Nowadays, what the hell are they going to give us for new? You know, what's going to be new? It's like the 60s and 70s music. That was, and even the 50s, I'll go back to that far. That's a mainstay of music. That's where it started. Now you listen to nowadays, what the hell were we listening to? I mean, they can't follow their own act. And so that's what's wrong with wrestling. They should just shut it down for 6 months. Shut it down like they do baseball and football. Just shut it down and bring it back. That's what I would do.
Seasonal wrestling?
Well, no, just shut it down
Just
for
shut it
6
down.
months.
Make,
And
make people hungry for it.
Make people starve.
Reboot. Yeah.
Starve for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
when's it going to come back on? And
We were
then-
just
Yeah,
we were
I
just
can
saying
see
the other
that.
day.
I can see that.
Growing up, Channel 9. Like,
Yeah.
could not wait for Channel 9 at midnight.
There was
right?
6 days in between to salivate.
Yeah.
So, Greg, tell me
Yeah,
a
that's what
little.
I'm talking about. It's
Tell me a
just
little
too
bit
much
about
now.
your father.
Okay.
You know, tell me what kind of man he was and what kind of relationship you had with him.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I never grew up with my father. I grew up with my grandparents. And my mother and my dad, they broke up. So I lived with my mother. My dad, she didn't want him to wrestle. So he went out wrestling, and eventually they got divorced. And then I lived with my mother, and my grandparents were right down the street. And I would just run to my grandparents all the time. So she let me stay with her grandparents, and I had kind of a wild mother. I'm sorry. She was a nightclub singer and everything, and she would bring different guys home, and it just didn't work out. So I grew up. My grandparents actually adopted me, and I grew up in a small town close to Seattle, Washington. And my mother's not she's not living right now, and God bless her. But she went to L.A. and met a guy down there and had a nice life, and I used to go visit her all the time. So, that being said, around when I was about 17 years old or something, my Aunt Virgie, she lived in Seattle, and she said, "Here, I want you." I'd never talked to my dad. I never even saw him, and I talked to him on the phone. And I was about 17, and he ended up flying me down to Dallas. He was a Texas heavyweight champion then, and I ended up staying down there 4 months with him on the road. What a wild time! And of course, right away I idolized him. And I'm about 5'10". I'm not full grown yet, about 190 pounds, but I'm pretty stocky. And he took me on the trips, and I think I finally said, "I want to be a wrestler like you." And he goes, "No, you're going to go back to Seattle. You're going to go to college," because I was just starting to go to college. I actually wanted to be so I was such a big music fan, I wanted to be in radio, a disc jockey or something like that. I wanted to be, or a newsman or anything. I was into radio. And so he says, "Well, I'll tell you what." He says, "I'll send you to Calgary." And I'm thinking, he's going to send me to Stu Hart. It's 40 degrees below zero up there. And he sent me up there with no wrestling shoes. And I'm going to get discouraged and I won't want to wrestle. But I learned really good up there with Stu, and it was really, really hard. And I got some horrible infection on my feet, and I couldn't wrestle for I was laid up for 2 weeks. I had impetigo with the feet because it was dirty mat. And I finally got me some shoes, and I learned how to wrestle some, and then I stayed in touch with my dad, and I said, "You got to get me out of here. I can't take it anymore. I'm making $50 a week, and I'm staying at the Calgarian Hotel, downtown Calgary, and they got three channels on the TV, and 2 of them are French." I said, "I got to get out of here. Help me, please." So he sent me to Detroit. Eddie Farhat, Detroit. He was the original Sheik. So I went there and stayed at the Sheik's house in the basement. And he had his kid down there too, I remember. And he had a ring in the back. And I'd already been wrestling in front of people, right? So he just put me on the road. I never learned anything out there in that ring in the back, you know. I learned just going in there and winging it with hardly any preparation. Stu Hart didn't really teach me hardly anything. He taught me how to hook up and how to fall backwards, and that's it. You know,
And how to get a foot infection.
And throw that side arm punch, which I never used, and grab a headlock, just the bare basics. he used to take all the other guys and take them down and wrench them and ring them and break their arm or something. He didn't do that because I'm Johnny Valentine's son. Thank you, Stu. He's another one that's passed away. But, you know, I remember Brett used to sneak down and watch. But I really learned it from just going out there and doing it from scratch. Just going out there not knowing what the hell I'm doing. But along came a guy named Don Fargo. Don Fargo saw me, and one of the Fargo brothers, but he was by himself then. He had the blonde hair. He did the strut like Buddy Rogers, and he asked Sheik if I could, he named me Johnny Fargo, and we went to Buffalo, New York together, and I learned really how to work from him in tag matches, and we went to Texas together and back to Buffalo again, and then finally I went on my own. So my dad, I never used the name Valentine until he went down in a plane crash, and so I became Greg Valentine, and so the rest is history there.
How long into it did it take your father to give you his blessing? Because, you know, on the surface, when a fan, like such as us, hears that the first place you go is the dungeon, and the next place you go is the Sheik, the original Sheik, he must have been impressed that you survived these things. And at some point, did he say, okay? Because at first you said he told you no, so.
Yeah, so I think what changed his mind, so I didn't want to be a Fargo anymore. I says, can I just use the name Greg Valentine? And he says, yeah, but go as my brother, not my son. Because back in the day, you know, they're going to say, well, he's 40, 45 years old. He's too old. You know, everybody, back in that day, back then, you know, if you're over 50 or something, you were told to be a boxer or a wrestler, people thought. And I understood his feeling. So I went as his younger brother, Greg Valentine. But when he had the plane crash, then it was different. Then I became his son. But yeah, I got over as Greg Valentine, his brother. I went out to L.A. as Greg Valentine, and you know, so yeah, it all worked. But he had that horrible plane crash, crippled him from the waist down, and but he managed to live another 20 years, and he would never be in that wheelchair. He wanted to walk around with those crutches, those metal crutches, and so, you know, God bless my dad.
Your relationship with Andre the Giant. How did you get along with Andre?
Wonderful. I loved Andre the Giant.
You feel fortunate that he loved you back? Because I've heard that if Andre didn't like somebody, oh boy.
Oh, so in 1975, I'm working for Mike LaBelle in L.A., and they sent me to Japan. I got on this big 747, and it's empty, and I'm in the back, and this stewardess comes to me. She comes back to me in the back, says, there's a couple guys up in first class. They want you to come up there. So I go on this big 747, and they had that spiral staircase that goes up to the first class on this big 747. And there is Andre sitting, and they're playing Cribbies and Arnold Skolin. So I'm hanging out with him, and of course Arnold knew my dad, and Andre had worked with my dad, so they invited me up there, and I'm drinking cognac, and I don't know how to play Cribbies, but I'm just glad to be up there. And I was face when I went through Japanese customs, but for the next 3 weeks, Arnold went back home early, so it was just me and the Giant for 3 weeks, going out every night to these Korean barbecues. I loved the guy. There was a story I tell a lot where we're trying to get a cab, and they see Andre, how big he is, and nobody will stop. So I says, hide behind there, Andre, and I'll flag a cab down, and as soon as the cab gets here, then you come around. So he come around, and the Japanese cab driver would go, no, and he'd get in the car to take off, and Andre reached down and grabbed the cab and pulled it up, and the wheels are spinning like this. It's like something out of a cartoon.
Wow.
The guy gets off and runs. So we finally got a panel truck. Well, a we got back to the Keel Plaza, very nice hotel there too. So me and Andre became great friends ever since that. I would be in the front part of this bullet train, and he'd yell at me, and I'd turn around, and he's way in the back. And all the Japanese people would look too, they all looked, in unison. And Andre backs his big ass up against the aluminum back there and lets this big giant fart, boom, and they all turn and look like this, and they look like this, and they all start laughing.
What were your thoughts on Adrian Adonis?
Oh, that was a mental case there too. I knew Adrian in Buffalo when I was working as Johnny Fargo, and nice guy, and he came up and he was really a tough guy down deep. He knew how to wrestle. This Fred Atkins guy up in Buffalo there taught him how to work and taught him how to be tough. So, but he went goofy, It was the drugs and that stupid gay gimmick he had. He actually, we were friends, and one time he told me to get away from him. He said, "What are you talking to me for?" I said, "Oh, f you, so I won't talk to you anymore." It wasn't long after that where he went off the deep end. So, yeah, I don't think too much about him.
Understood. Eric, where are you going to be the rest of the weekend?
All right, so tomorrow from 9 to about 4 o'clock or so, we're in New York City, the Big Apple. It's the Big Apple trading card. It's the Big Apple Con tomorrow at the.
Might want to learn the event. Just saying.
The New York. It's the Big Apple trading card. Well, it's the Big Apple Con, the New Yorker Hotel, and that's over by Madison Square Garden.
Greg, it's got to make you feel great that all these fans still adore you after all this time and recognize you being one of the greatest at your profession of all time.
Well, I think a lot of that is because even if they were too young to watch me back then, some of these younger guys that are watching it that's on TV now, but they go back and look at the 80s, the 70s, 80s, 90s stuff, and they realize, oh, wow, it's a whole new thing here to me. It really looked good back then. So they're because of YouTube and because of everything else, and the Peacock Network replaying the WWE stuff, it gave me new life, and it's not like it's kind of like I'm still wrestling, but I'm not. I mean, they're seeing the stuff that I did 20 years ago, and they're appreciating it, or maybe longer. I don't know, but it's good to be appreciated still.